In a quiet village where the roads were dusty and time moved slowly, there lived an old man named Major Hamid. People saw him every morning sitting outside his small house, sipping tea, feeding birds, and reading an old newspaper. He wore the same clothes every day, simple white kurta and a faded army cap. No one paid much attention to him. To the village children, he was just Baba Ji. To the shopkeepers, he was the man who paid in exact change and spoke little. But no one really knew who Major Hamid was. Not anymore. Years ago, he had worn the army uniform with pride. He had medals, many of them, but never showed them off. He kept them locked in a wooden box under his bed. The village had forgotten his past, but he never did. Every month, he would walk to the post office with an envelope in his hand. Inside was money. He sent it to 3 different people, Ali, Sana, and Jawad. No one knew who they were. He never spoke their names. He just whispered softly while sealing the envelopes. For the children of my brothers, the past that still breathes. 25 years ago, during a brutal border operation, Hamid's unit was ambushed. 3 of his closest friends died that day. Brave soldiers, loyal men. Their families had nothing left. No homes, no savings, only pain. Hamid survived. When he came back, he promised himself, "Their children will never suffer. My life belongs to them now." He tracked down their kids. All 3 were sent to orphanages in different cities. Hamid couldn't adopt them. His health was failing, and he had no family. But he used his army pension and savings to pay for their schooling. Quietly, secretly. He watched their lives grow through letters and school results. They didn't know much about him, only that someone called Uncle H had taken care of them. Now they were adults. The letters had stopped years ago, but Hamid still sent the money, still remembered every birthday, still prayed for them every night. The lonely life. Hamid's house was old but neat. A photo wall hung near his prayer mat. Pictures of his unit, black and white photos of soldiers standing in the snow, smiling with pride. In the center was a picture of him, much younger, shaking hands with a general. Below it were the medals he never wore again. Every night, he would light a candle and sit in front of that wall. He would speak to the photos like old friends. Ali must be a doctor by now. Sana was always good with books. And Jawad, my brave boy. I hope he's safe. But something inside him had changed. He felt it. His bones ached more. His breath was shorter. His hands sometimes shook while pouring tea. He had a feeling. Time is asking for something. Something is coming. The letter that changed everything. One cloudy morning, as Hamid opened the gate to collect his newspaper, he saw an envelope lying on the ground. It had no stamp, no sender name, just his name written in careful handwriting. To Uncle H. His hands trembled as he opened it. Inside was a small letter. Uncle H. We're coming to see you. We never forgot. It's time. A, S, and J. He sat down slowly on the bench, reading it again and again. They're coming. After all these years, his heart raced. A strange mix of joy and fear filled his chest. What would they look like? Would they even recognize him? What had life done to them? He looked at the photo wall again. No, this is not just a visit. Something is wrong. The suspense begins. Later that evening, the young boy from the village told him, Babaji, a black car stopped by the crossroads today. 3 people came out. They asked where your house was. Hamid nodded. Did they say their names? No, sir, but one of them looked angry. As the sun set, Hamid put on his old army jacket. He opened the wooden box under his bed and took out something he hadn't touched in years, a small pistol wrapped in cloth. He loaded it, slowly, carefully. Then he whispered to the quiet room, I saved them from poverty. But maybe now, I have to save them from something worse. And as the night fell, Lights from a black car appeared on the village road. They had come back. And with them came the past he had buried 25 years ago. The black car stopped at the edge of the village road. Dust rose around it as the engine turned off. The sun had already set, and the air felt cold and strange, as if the ground itself was holding its breath. Major Hamid stood at his gate, his hands behind his back. His old army jacket hung loose over his thin shoulders. His eyes were sharp, watching the car without blinking. 3 figures stepped out. One was a tall man with tired eyes and a beard, Ali. The second was a woman with a strong face, wearing a long coat, Sana. The third was a quiet man in dark clothes, his hands in his pockets, Jawad. They didn't smile. They didn't cry. They just stood there, staring at him. Ali took a step forward. "Uncle ate you?" he asked softly. Hamid nodded. "Yes." Ali looked at the others. Then, without a word, they walked through the gate and stood before him. We never forgot. Inside the house, silence filled the small living room. The only sound was the ticking clock on the wall and the boiling of tea in the kitchen. Hamid poured the tea himself. His hands shook slightly. "You all grew up," he said, looking at their faces. "I hardly recognize you." Sana smiled faintly. "We recognized you, still wearing that cap." Ali looked around the house. "It's smaller than I imagined. It was never meant to be big." Hamid replied, "Just enough to hold memories." Jawad hadn't spoken a word. He sat in the corner, his eyes scanning the room like a soldier checking for threats. Sana finally placed a small box on the table. Inside were old letters, photos, and school reports, everything Hamid had sent them over the years. "We kept it all," she whispered. "You never met us, but you were always there." Hamid looked down, eyes moist. "I promised your parents I would take care of you. I didn't do much." "You did everything," Ali said. "We're alive because of you." But something was off. As the night grew deeper, Hamid noticed things. Jawad never smiled. He flinched every time a door creaked. He kept checking his phone, but never answered it. His right hand stayed close to his side, like it was guarding something. Ali looked tired, not just physically, but deeply worn inside. He asked about the village, the roads, the back exit behind the house. Too many questions. Sana stared out the window. Every few minutes, she asked, "Are you sure no one follows you here?" Finally, Hamid leaned forward. "You didn't come just to say thank you, did you?" Silence. Ali looked at him, guilt in his eyes. "We came because we had nowhere else to go," he said, "and because we knew if anyone would protect us, it's you." The story they didn't want to tell. Sana spoke slowly. Her voice was low, like she was afraid the walls might hear. "We were working in a foreign country, helping refugees, teaching kids. We saw things we weren't supposed to see." Hamid didn't interrupt. "We saw soldiers burning villages, not enemies, innocent people. We recorded it. We tried to report it. But the people in charge, they didn't want the world to know." Ali added, "We've been running ever since. Our friend who helped leak the video, he's dead now." Hamid's hand curled into a fist. "They called it an accident." Jawad finally spoke, voice cold. "But we saw his body. It was no accident." There was silence. "You brought the video here?" Hamid asked. Jawad reached into his coat and pulled out a small flash drive. "This is the reason they want us dead." A warning from the shadows. Just then, the power went out. Darkness filled the house. Outside, dogs started barking. Hamid stood up quickly. "Get away from the windows." He grabbed an old lantern and lit it. The flickering light cast shadows across their faces. A knock came at the door. 3 knocks. Then silence. Hamid raised a hand, signaling them to stay quiet. He walked to the door and opened it just a crack. No one was there. But a note had been nailed to the door. He pulled it off and read it. You should have stayed in the shadows. Now the past will burn with you. His eyes narrowed. They know you're here, he said. The soldier awakens again. That night, Hamid didn't sleep. He sat by the photo wall, polishing his old pistol, checking his maps, thinking about escape routes. He had spent his whole life fighting battles. But this was personal. These are my children, he whispered to the photos. And I won't let anyone take them. The camera would slowly zoom out as thunder rolled in the distance, and lightning lit the medals on the wall. The medals that paid for their future. But now, they might cost them their lives. Morning light crept through the windows of Major Hamid's small house. The village woke slowly. Roosters crowed, tea stalls opened, and children ran barefoot to school. But inside Hamid's home, no one felt peace. The night had changed everything. The warning note still sat on the table. The flash drive that held dangerous truth was hidden under the floorboards, and Hamid's eyes, once calm and quiet, were now sharp and full of fire. Ali sat on the floor, cleaning his glasses. Sana paced the room. Jawad stood by the door, staring out through the curtains. They hadn't slept much. Neither had Hamid, the watcher in the fields. That afternoon, as Hamid walked to the corner shop, he saw something strange. A man stood near the fields, wearing a city suit, sunglasses, and polished shoes. Not something villagers wore. He pretended to talk on the phone, but his eyes followed Hamid carefully. Hamid stopped. The man smiled slightly, then turned and walked away into the fields. Back at home, Hamid told the others. He's not from here, he said. Jawad clenched his jaw. They found us. No, Hamid said. They're testing, watching, waiting. They want to know if the flash drive is still with you, or if you've already passed it on. Ali whispered, we can't trust anyone now. The postman disappears. Later that evening, the village postman, old Yaqub, came to deliver a letter. He was cheerful and chatty. As always, Hamid gave him a cup of tea and chatted briefly. Lot of visitors this week, Babaji, Yaqub said with a smile. Foreign cars, strange faces, some even asked me about your house. Hamid nodded slowly. Be careful, Yaqub. Me? Yaqub laughed. I'm just the postman. The next morning, Yaqub didn't come to work. His bicycle was found near the river, but he was gone. People said he had gone to visit relatives, but Hamid knew better. They're sending a message. The hidden letters. Sana and Ali helped clean one of the old cupboards in Hamid's room. There they found a small locked box they hadn't noticed before. Can we open it? Sana asked. Hamid nodded. Inside were dozens of letters, some unopened, some yellowed with age. Most were from orphanages, schools, and banks, updates on the children's lives. But there were 3 letters that stood out. They were written by Ali, Sana, and Jawad. Letters they had sent as teenagers. Letters they thought were lost. Sana read hers aloud. Dear Uncle H, I don't know who you are, but thank you for the books. I passed my test today. I wish my father could see me, but maybe you are watching me for him. Love, Sana. Her voice broke. Ali read his, then Jawad. They sat together in silence. For a moment, the danger outside disappeared. They were just 3 children, sitting near their silent hero. The secret Sana carries. That night, after everyone slept, Sana stood near the window, deep in thought. Hamid walked over to her. You haven't told them everything, have you? He asked. Sana looked away. There's more on that flash drive, she whispered. Names, bank accounts, high-level people. You stole it. No, a friend gave it to us. He was a journalist. They killed him 3 weeks later. We were next. Hamid's face hardened. You should have gone to the press. Sana shook her head. They own most of it. The ones we can trust are scared. Then we need to find someone who isn't. Strange faces in the market. The next morning, Ali went to the market to get supplies. As he reached for bread, he noticed a woman watching him. She wore local clothes, but her eyes didn't move like a villager's. She kept pretending to shop, but her gaze never left him. Another man stood near the butcher stall. Same pattern. Ali returned quickly. "They're surrounding us," he said. "Not acting. Waiting." Jawad stood up. "Then let's leave tonight." "No," Hamid said. "That's what they want. If you run without a plan, you'll disappear. Like Yaqub. Like your journalist friend." He placed an old map on the table. Military escape routes, hidden forest paths, army bunkers. "I used these during the war. Still open. Still safe." Ali looked at the map, surprised. "You kept these all these years." "I never stopped being a soldier." Rain began to fall lightly over the village. Drops tapped on the rooftops and danced in puddles on the dusty streets. Inside Major Hamid's house, the atmosphere was heavy. No one spoke much, but inside their minds, storms were rising. Ali sat at the edge of his bed, staring at the letter Major Hamid wrote the night before. Jawad had gone to post it in the next town. Sana hadn't come out of her room since morning. Something had changed in her. She was quiet, withdrawn. An old journal. While organizing some of the old files in the cupboard, Ali found something strange. An old green leather journal with a name written in faded ink. Captain Kamran, 1987. "Who's Captain Kamran?" Ali asked. Major Hamid's face froze. He took the journal from Ali's hand slowly. His fingers traced the name. For a moment, he didn't speak. His eyes filled with something deep. Grief, guilt, or both. "He was my best friend," Hamid said quietly. "We served in the same unit. We trained together, ate together, fought side by side." "What happened to him?" Hamid looked away. "He died because he trusted the wrong people. He found corruption in the system. Tried to speak. They silenced him. Made it look like an accident." Sana stepped out from her room. "Just like our journalist friend," she said. "Same pattern." Ali's voice dropped to a whisper. "It's been happening for decades." Secrets inside the journal. Later that day, Hamid allowed them to read parts of the journal. The entries weren't just war memories. They were warnings. Captain Kamran had been collecting names, officers involved in illegal activities, weapons deals, land theft, even civilian disappearances. And 2 of those names matched the ones Sana and Jawad had on their flash drive. Ali's hands trembled. "This is proof from 2 different decades." Sana nodded. "They've been protecting each other for years." "But if this gets out," Hamid said, "it won't just destroy careers. It will burn the top of the system." Ali looked at the flash drive and the journal. Maybe that's what the world needs. A message from the past. That night, as lightning lit the sky, the doorbell rang. Everyone froze. Hamid slowly opened the door. A young village boy stood there, soaked in rain. "Uncle," the boy said, "someone gave me this letter to give you." He was wearing a cap and glasses. Didn't tell me his name. Hamid took the envelope. There was no return address. Only one sentence written inside. "The fire you buried is still burning." He crumpled the note. "They're watching even the children now," he said. Jawad returned soon after, wet from the road, and said, "The letter was posted, but I was followed halfway back. I lost them in the forest trail." "No more time," Hamid said. "They're closing in. The trap begins to form." Using his old training, Hamid mapped out 3 escape routes, one through the forest, one by the dry riverbed, and one through the abandoned railway station. "We move tomorrow night," he said. "If they attack before that, we hold the house." Sana checked her phone. Still no signal. "They're jamming it." Hamid pointed to the roof. "I have a shortwave radio. It can reach army frequencies, but only if someone answers." Ali climbed up to set it up. That night, Jawad loaded their few bags. Ali checked the maps again and again. Sana wrote something. A letter. To her parents. Just in case. The painful truth. As the clock neared midnight, Ali walked out to the porch where Hamid was sitting silently. "Uncle," he said, "can I ask something?" Hamid nodded. "Why didn't you ever visit us, all these years?" The old soldier didn't answer at first. "I wanted to," he said finally. "Many times. I had your school addresses, your college names." "Then why not?" Hamid's voice cracked. "Because I blamed myself." "For what?" "For your father's death. For not saving him in time. He was my junior, my friend. He trusted me to protect you. I failed him." Ali's eyes softened. "You didn't fail. You gave us a life, when we had nothing." Sana stepped outside too, holding her letter. "You're the only real family we've ever known." The gunshot in the night. Just then, a gunshot echoed across the fields. Everyone dropped to the ground. Hamid grabbed his pistol. Jawad rushed to the window. Sana ducked under the table. "Back of the house," Jawad shouted. They ran to the rear door and peeked out. A shadowy figure lay in the mud. Hamid stepped outside carefully. It was a stranger, barely alive, whispering something. Hamid leaned close. The man whispered, "They're not coming tomorrow. They're coming tonight." And then he went still. Hamid's blood ran cold. "They're here, preparing for war." Hamid locked the doors and windows. He handed each of them a weapon, even Sana. "No more hiding," he said. "We protect this house, this truth, and each other." Ali looked at the journal. Sana checked the flash drive. Jawad loaded the rifles. They had no soldiers, no backup, just an old war hero and the children he raised from afar. But sometimes that's all you need. The rain got louder. And in the shadows outside the house, boots were moving. The rain fell harder now. Thunder rolled across the sky like a warning from heaven. Inside the small house, the lights flickered. Ali stood near the front window, holding his breath. Sana sat on the floor, her back to the wall, gripping the flash drive tightly. Jawad paced quietly, his rifle ready. And Major Hamid stood tall, in his old army uniform. The medals were gone, but the fire in his eyes had returned. "They're coming," he whispered. "Tonight. They'll try to take us quietly. We won't let them." Footsteps in the dark. At exactly 2:17 a.m., the power went out. Total darkness. Only the sound of rain. And then, footsteps. Soft, careful, trained. Jawad turned toward the rear window. "Movement behind the trees," he said. Sana nodded. "Front two. I count 4 shadows." Ali checked the radio. Still dead. Hamid whispered, "They're trying to scare us, break us. But this is our home. We fight here." He handed out flares. "If they breach the doors, like these, it will blind them for seconds. That's all we need." Ali asked, "Do you think we'll make it?" Hamid placed a hand on his shoulder. "If we don't, we make sure the truth does." The first strike. At 2:31 a.m., the first glass shattered. A rock flew through the back window, followed by tear gas. Jawad reacted fast, slamming a wet towel against the window and firing a warning shot. A scream echoed in the dark. "Got one," he said. But more were coming. 3 men climbed over the sidewall. One tried the front door. Another crept near the kitchen. Sana heard a thump, someone trying to break in through the back bathroom. Ali ran to block the door with a table. Hamid aimed through the broken curtain and fired. The man fell. "Stay low," he shouted. Memories of war. As the gunfire echoed, Hamid's mind drifted, just for a second, to another battlefield. Years ago, a hilltop village. The smell of blood and smoke. His comrades beside him, his captain dying in his arms. He had sworn that day, no more innocent deaths, Not while I breathe. Now he was back in a war. Not for land, not for glory, but for truth. For the children of the soldier he couldn't save. The flash drive falls. In the chaos, Sana tripped near the hallway. The flash drive slipped from her hand and slid under the couch. "No," she cried. She dropped to the floor, reaching for it. Another rock crashed through the window above her. Jawad pulled her up. "Get down." Ali crawled under the couch and grabbed the flash drive. "Got it," he shouted. Suddenly, someone kicked the back door open. A tall man in black stepped inside. Jawad fired. The man fell, but not before throwing a small object inside. A smoke grenade. The room filled with gray clouds. They couldn't see. "Sana," Ali called. "Here. Everyone, to the front room," Hamid ordered. They stumbled through the smoke, coughing and dizzy. The secret compartment. Hamid opened a hidden panel behind the bookshelf. Inside was a narrow passage leading to the basement. "Go," he said. "What about you?" Sana asked. "I'll hold them off." "No," Ali shouted. "We're not leaving you." Hamid looked at them with pride in his eyes. "You are my mission now. Go." But before they could argue more, a bullet hit the wall inches from Ali's head. They ran into the tunnel. Hamid closed the panel behind them. Then he turned. Alone again. But this time, ready. The fight of a lifetime. 5 men entered the house. One held a pistol. Another carried handcuffs. A third had a radio. Target secured. Prepare extraction. They thought the house was empty. Until Hamid stepped from the shadows. "Looking for someone?" he asked. They turned in shock. "Who the hell?" Too late. Hamid moved like a ghost from the past, a soldier reborn. He knocked one man out with the butt of his rifle, fired at another, rolled behind a chair, and took cover. "You messed with the wrong house," he growled. 2 men fled. One tried to fight back, but Hamid tackled him to the ground. "You wanted secrets," he whispered. "I've kept them for 25 years. Then everything went quiet. The invaders were gone, or unconscious, and Hamid, breathing hard, stood among the ruins of his living room. Alone again, but alive. Hope in the tunnel. In the narrow passage, the air was cold and damp. Sana clutched the flash drive like a newborn child. Ali whispered, "Do you think he's okay?" Jawad checked his watch. He said 5 minutes. "Then we move." They waited, hearts pounding, fingers trembling. Finally, a knock on the tunnel door. 1, 2, pause. 3. It was the signal. Hamid opened the door, blood on his face, but smiling. "Let's go," he said. The road ahead. They emerged from the tunnel into the forest. Dawn was breaking. The first light of morning spread across the sky. Behind them, smoke rose from the village. Ahead was freedom, and maybe justice. Ali looked at Hamid. "Where now?" "To the old army base," he said. "If Colonel Farouk got my letter, he'll be waiting." Sana looked down at the flash drive. "This will change everything." Jawad smiled slightly. "Let's make sure it does." They walked forward, into the unknown, but not afraid. The sun had just risen. The forest around them was quiet, too quiet. No birds, no wind, just the sound of heavy breathing and fast footsteps. Major Hamid, Ali, Sana, and Jawad walked through the tall grass, staying low and close. They had left behind the village, the burning house, and the only place that had felt like home. But they didn't look back. They were carrying something more important now. The truth. The safe house. After walking for over 2 hours, they'd reached an old abandoned outpost deep in the forest. It was built from stone, half covered in vines, and hidden by trees. "This place was used during border operations," Hamid said. "No one comes here anymore." Inside, there were broken chairs, dusty maps, and an old radio machine. Jawad checked the wires. It still works, maybe. Ali set down the flash drive carefully on a cloth. It was scratched, a little dusty, but still intact. Sana looked around. What if they find us again? Hamid touched her shoulder. Then we fight again. But first, we tell the world. The colonel's answer. Hamid used the shortwave radio to send a coded message. It was meant for only one man. Colonel Farouk, a retired officer who once fought beside Hamid. One of the last few people Hamid still trusted. For 2 hours, they waited. Sana kept checking the door. Jawad loaded the last few bullets. Ali read parts of Captain Cameron's journal out loud. Then, the radio crackled. A deep voice came through. Hamid, I received your letter. Coordinates confirmed. I'll come, but be careful. Not all ears are friendly. Hamid smiled. He's coming. Old wounds, fresh fears. That night, Hamid sat by the fire alone. His hand trembled slightly. Ali noticed and sat beside him. You okay, uncle? Hamid nodded. Old bones, old pain. He looked at the stars. I spent years running from my past, Ali. But the truth has a way of finding you, no matter how far you run. Ali looked at the flash drive. I used to think heroes wore capes, he said, but they wear scars, like yours. Hamid smiled softly. And sometimes, they wear guilt too. The truth exposed. The next morning, Colonel Farouk arrived with 2 other trusted men in a jeep. He was older, gray-haired, but stood tall like a man still in service. He hugged Hamid tightly. Still fighting for justice after all these years, he said. They sat inside the outpost. Sana showed him the flash drive and the journal. Jawad explained how the files matched the ones the journalist had before he was killed. Farouk listened carefully. These names, he said slowly, some of them are still in power. He looked at Hamid. If we release this, there will be chaos. Ali stepped forward. But maybe, finally, there will be justice. A plan is made. Farouk agreed to help, but they needed to be smart. The files would be sent to 3 places: a trusted news channel in the capital city, a former Supreme Court judge who had a clean record, an international human rights group to keep pressure from outside. Farouk's team would protect the group until the files were safely delivered. You all must disappear after this, Farouk warned. They'll come after you. But if this gets out, they'll fall. Sana looked at Ali. He nodded. We're ready. A surprise visitor. Just as they were about to leave, a voice called out from the forest. Everyone froze. Then a young man stepped into view, limping, clothes torn, blood on his arm. It was Zubair, a local school teacher from the village. I escaped, he gasped. They arrested 5 villagers, said they were helping a traitor. I saw them beat Mr. Karim. He's 70. Hamid clenched his fists. They're punishing innocents now. Ali helped Zubair sit. Sana gave him water. Farouk looked at the others. If we wait longer, more people will suffer. The race to the city. They moved that night. 2 jeeps. One headed for the capital with Farouk and Jawad. The second, with Hamid, Ali, and Sana, took a longer route toward the judge's house. They had 12 hours before the next wave of soldiers would discover the safe house. Sana held the flash drive like it was gold. Ali sat beside her, eyes alert, watching every shadow. In the back seat, Hamid kept checking his pistol. The air was tense. Every turn could be a trap. The checkpoint. Around 3 a.m., they approached a checkpoint. It wasn't army. It was private security, run by one of the corrupted men listed in the files. They were waving flashlights. Stop the car, Hamid said. Ali slowed down. A guard stepped forward. Where are you coming from? He asked. Just delivering supplies to the mosque in District 9, Hamid said calmly. The guard narrowed his eyes. At 3 in the morning, Sana smiled nervously. It's for a funeral. We're late already. The guard looked inside and paused near the bag with the flash drive. Just then, Hamid dropped his cane. The metal hit the ground loudly. The guard looked down, distracted. Ali moved fast, stepped on the gas. The jeep sped forward. The guards shouted. Bullets flew, but they were already gone. One step away. As the city lights appeared on the horizon, Ali finally exhaled. We made it. Sana clutched his arm. Not yet. Just one more hour. Hamid, quiet until now, finally smiled. This isn't the end, but it's the beginning of something bigger. They weren't just carrying files anymore. They were carrying the storm, and the world was about to feel it. The morning sun rose over the capital city, casting a golden glow on the tall buildings, wide roads, and sleepy streets. But this day was different. Today, the truth was coming. Today, giants would fall. Reaching the judge, Ali, Sana, and Major Hamid reached the judge's home just before 7 a.m. The neighborhood was quiet, well guarded, with high walls and security cameras. Retired Supreme Court Judge Amir Sadiq stepped out as soon as they arrived. He wore a white kurta and spectacles, but his eyes were sharp. I read the file Farouk sent, he said. I didn't sleep all night. Ali handed him the flash drive. This is the rest. Everything. The judge looked at Hamid. You've carried this burden for 25 years. Let me carry it now. Hamid nodded, his voice low. Be careful. They will come for you. Judge Amir smiled. Let them. I'm not afraid of criminals hiding in high places. The broadcast begins. By 9 a.m., the files had been uploaded. A trusted news channel called Voice of the People broke the story live on TV and social media. Breaking news. Explosive leaks expose war crimes, government cover-ups, and the murder of a journalist. All evidence verified. Photos, videos, names, bank accounts, military documents. The internet exploded. People began sharing the files. Hashtags trended. Crowds gathered outside government offices. The world was watching, and the powerful began to panic. The reaction. At a secret meeting, one of the exposed generals shouted, "How did this happen? Who leaked this?" Another said, "Shut down the media. Block the internet." But it was too late. The files had spread too far, too fast. The international press picked it up. Foreign leaders demanded investigations. The Human Rights Commission called for arrests. And the people had awakened. Protests filled the streets. Posters of the slain journalist were held high. Old men wept. Young people chanted. And in the center of it all was one message. His medals paid for their silence. Now his truth pays for our freedom. Ali, Sana, and the world watching. Ali and Sana watched the news from a safe house with Hamid and Colonel Farouk. Sana's hands trembled. We did it, didn't we? Ali smiled. The world knows now. Farouk nodded. It's not over. But the storm has started. Just then, the judge appeared live on national TV. He held up the flash drive. This is the truth of 25 years, covered in blood and silence. But no more. Justice begins today. The arrests begin. Within hours, 5 high-ranking officials were placed under investigation. 2 tried to flee the country, but were caught at the airport. The general who had laughed during the journalist's funeral was dragged out of his mansion on live TV. People cheered. Major Hamid watched silently. He did not cheer. He just closed his eyes and finally let go of the pain he had carried for so long. Zubair's testimony. At a public hearing, Zubair, the schoolteacher who had escaped the village, gave his testimony. He told the story of Karim, the 70-year-old man beaten for helping a traitor. He told the world how the people had suffered in silence. He ended by saying, "We weren't protecting a criminal. We were standing beside a soldier who never stopped protecting us. The courtroom went silent, then erupted in applause. A letter from the grave. A week later, the journalist's sister delivered a sealed letter to Judge Amir. It had been hidden in his personal locker. It read, "If you are reading this, it means someone believed in the truth enough to risk everything. I thank you. I forgive those who silenced me. But I pray they never silence the truth again. To the one who served and protected me without knowing. Thank you, Major Hamid. I never forgot your sacrifice." Tears filled Hamid's eyes. He held the letter close to his chest. The medal returns. On the steps of the Supreme Court, a quiet ceremony was held. Ali and Sana stood beside Hamid. A judge placed a medal, one of the very ones Hamid had sold for their education, back into his hand. "You gave everything for this country," the judge said. "Today, we give this back." The crowd stood and clapped. Some saluted. Others cried. Sana whispered, "He's not just our uncle. He's our hero." Ali smiled through tears. He always was. The city had calmed. The streets no longer echoed with protest chants. The news channels no longer shouted breaking news every hour. The giants had fallen, and the dust had settled. But not all wounds were visible, and not every hero wore his medal. A house with quiet walls. Major Hamid now lived in a small home near the edge of the city. It had a garden he tended every morning, 2 wooden chairs on the porch, and a bookshelf filled with old war journals. Every morning, he woke up at dawn, watered the plants, fed the birds, and sat silently with his tea. He didn't need the noise anymore. He had served, he had spoken, and he had fought. Now he rested. But his story had started to move in ways he never imagined. The school named after a medal. In the heart of the village where it all began, a new school had opened. A white building with blue windows. Laughter filled the air as children ran across the courtyard. The sign outside read, "The Medal School, for Truth and Courage." It was built using donations from all over the country. Donations that poured in after people learned what Hamid had done, what he had sacrificed, and how his medals had paid for more than just school fees. They had paid for a movement. Inside, young boys and girls learned about honesty, bravery, and the cost of silence. And on the wall, beside the flag, was a photo of Major Hamid in uniform. Under it were the words, "Speak, even when your voice shakes." Ali and Sana's new mission. Ali had taken up journalism. Not the kind with noise and breaking news, but real storytelling. He traveled across villages and cities, finding unheard voices, farmers, soldiers, teachers, mothers, people who had stories but no microphone. He would sit with them, listen and write. And every time he wrote something brave, he remembered the man who once hid truth inside a rusted box. Sana became a human rights lawyer. She helped those accused unfairly. She stood up for women, orphans, and victims of power. Once, she faced threats from a local politician. But she smiled and said, "I grew up with a man who faced bullets for truth. Your words don't scare me." Together, Ali and Sana had become exactly what Hamid had silently hoped for all these years. Letters from strangers. One evening, as Hamid sat reading under a tree, the postman arrived with a small bag. "Uncle Hamid," he said, smiling, "you've got fan mail again." The old soldier chuckled. He took the letters inside and began reading. A young girl from Lahore wrote, "Because of you, I'm not afraid to tell the truth in my classroom." A man from Karachi said, "My father served in your unit. He always said you were the bravest among them." A woman from Peshawar sent a drawing her 5-year-old son made, of a soldier with a heart instead of a gun. Every week, more came. And every time, Hamid folded them carefully and placed them in a wooden box marked, "Truth Lives On." The return to the hill. One quiet morning, Ali and Sana visited Hamid and asked if they could go back to the hill where he had buried the captain's journal. The sun was soft. The wind was gentle. They stood under the same tree. Hamid dug gently into the earth and lifted the journal once more. He opened it, ran his fingers over the pages, and whispered, "Still here." Allah looked around. "This place feels peaceful." Hamid smiled, "Because it's where truth was planted." And it grew. Sana added, "Can we make this a place where others can come too, to remember?" Hamid nodded, and a month later, that spot became the Truth Grove. A bench was placed under the tree. A plaque beside it read, "Here, silence ended. Here, truth began." Zubair's students. Zubair, the school teacher who had escaped the soldiers, now taught a new generation in the rebuilt village school. He often told them the story of the man with the medal and the walking stick. "How did he fight with a walking stick?" a small boy asked once. Zubair smiled. "He didn't fight with the stick, child. He fought with his will." "And who gave him the strength?" Zubair looked toward the sunlit window. "You did. We all did. We just didn't know it yet." One last march. A year later, on National Heroes Day, a special march was held in the capital. Thousands gathered to honor the unsung heroes, those who fought silently, those who stood when others bowed. And at the front of the march walked a gray-haired man in a simple white kurta. No medals on his chest, just a small notebook in his hand. People clapped, saluted, cried, and whispered his name. He didn't wave. He didn't smile. He just walked. Because his message had already been sent. His battle had already been won. Final scene. The boy and the soldier. At the medal school, a young boy asked his teacher, "Will we ever see Major Hamid again?" The teacher smiled. "Maybe not in person, but every time you speak the truth, every time you stand up when it's hard, every time you help someone in silence." He pointed to the sky. "He lives in that."